Hello, welcome back to Picture Perfect Greek. And today we are going to have a little bit of a grammar lesson because a viewer wanted this. They asked about prefixes in Greek. So these prefixes are very important, and knowing them allows you to create new words, words that don't even exist, or to understand words that are interesting, that do exist, that other people use, which you don't have to learn. You don't have to memorize them as a whole because you can understand how they are constructed. And you know that this has always been a thing of this channel, that we talk about how the words are built and how you can understand the words by understanding their components. So let's go and see some prefixes. In Greek, prefixes are small word parts that go at the beginning of a word that change or add to the meaning of the word. Greeks use prefixes to create new words, often giving them a different or more specific meaning. To give you an example in English, think of how in English the prefix un changes happy to unhappy. And there are many such prefixes in English too. Greek words work the same way, just with their own sets of prefixes, and there are many prefixes. So in English I would have trouble finding many more. You can perhaps come up with 2 or 3 more, but Greek is full of them. And these prefixes don't stand alone in a sentence. They are always part of a larger word. They generally alter or extend the meaning of another word and add a sense of beyond, under, together, opposition, and many others. They usually come right down from ancient Greek. This is why sometimes they feel a little alien, because these words are not used in other senses except as a prefix nowadays. And they have often also found their way into English and other languages. For example, in English we would say hyper something, hyperspace, right, is a Greek word, hyper, which means more than, greater, or beyond. So here are some common prefixes. One, I already mentioned it just now, hyper, meaning above and beyond. For example, hypervasi. And vasi comes from veno, to step, to go, to walk somewhere. It's a transgression. It's a walking above and beyond the limits where you are allowed to walk, going beyond a set limit. The next one is kata. Kata is very common, means against or downward. Example, katastrefo. This is in English also the catastrophe, the catastrophic event, to bring destruction to something. Kata means, as we said, against or downward, and strefo comes from strophe, to turn. It's a downturn, literally. It's a catastrophic event. Meta means always change or transition. So we have metakomisi, for example, is moving one's house, or metadedομένα are data about other data, metadata. So this sense of meta also exists in English, right? The metaverse, which is the change universe or the transition universe. Meta always in English also signifies a level beyond the usual level of things. So when you have metaphysics, this is in philosophy something that goes beyond physics, that is above physics, and you look down at physics. Yeah, so these are multiple meanings of meta. The next one, very common one, is sin, means together and with. We've had it dozens of times with different texts we are talking about. Syndrophos, for example, means the colleague or the comrade. And this comes from syn, with, along, together with, and trefo, trophy, which means to eat. So comrades are the people you are eating with, you're sharing a meal with. Another example, synergasia or synergatis, comes from syn and ergasia, which is the work. Ergatis is the worker. So synergatis is your co-worker. Synergasia is the cooperation, working together with others. Then we have andi. And andi is also very common in English. Antimatter, antipathy. You have all sorts of andi. Andi means opposite, opposition, against something. For example, in Greek, antiparāthesi, placing against or confrontation. So antiparesis can be placing one picture against another to see which one is the better one, or to make a point about the aesthetics of photography. But it can also mean something like confrontation. So let's now have a look at prefixes sorted by level. So when you're just beginning your Greek journey, you're level A1 or A2, then perhaps you don't need to remember the more esoteric ones. Let's look at the most common ones for level A1 and A2. You certainly need to remember andi, because this is very common, opposite or against. I will give you some more examples. Andigrapho is to copy. Comes from andi and grapho. I am writing against something. So I'm writing against the original, right? You have the original on one hand, you have the other, the empty page against it, and now you're writing, you're copying. Antipatho, in English too, antipathy, right? Means to dislike someone, comes from pathos, the feeling, the emotion, and andi, you have an opposite emotion, you have an contrary emotion. Andidro means to react, to respond against something, comes from drasi, which is the action. This is where drama comes from also, in the theater, right? Dramatic means action. And andidro means to have an action against something, to act against. And this literally means react, respond against something. Then, of course, we just mentioned sin is very common for level A1, A2, together with synergazome, to work together, synomilo, to talk with someone. Omilo means to speak, milo, modern Greek, and synomilo, to speak together with someone, means to talk, to converse. Symviono, vios is the life. Symviono means to live together, and this is where symbiotic comes from in biology. These are organisms that live together. So a symbiotic organism might live on a tree, might be another plant that needs the tree in order to live. Kata, against, downward. Examples: katastrapho, katalaveno, katagrapho. Katalaveno means to understand. Kata, against, downward, is not so fitting here. Laveno means to take, to receive. So katalaveno means to understand, literally, to receive this knowledge into your brain. So this meaning of against, downward, is not necessarily present here. Katagrapho means to record, to write down. So this is where the kata has this meaning of downward, right? I write something down. Okay, moving on to the intermediate level, B1, B2, you need certainly to remember hyper, above and beyond. Hypervoli means to exaggerate something, to be exaggerating. Volley is the throw of something, the throw of a ball. And so when you say hypervoli, means you're throwing beyond where you should be throwing your ball, so you are exaggerating it. Hypersynchronos. Synchronos, this is actually two of the prefixes together. You can stack them, right? So you have synchronos. Chronos is the time. Synchronos is the synchronicity we say in English too, means at the same time, right? At the same time. Synchronos, together, time. So something happens at the same time like something else. And this in modern Greek means present, the present, things that happen in the present time. So synchronos means contemporary, right? And this is the same word in Latin version. Con means cum, means together, and tempus is the time, right? So contemporary means at the same time, synchronos. And hypersynchronos means beyond the present times. So it means very modern, super modern. Hypertimo, to overvalue. Hyper, again, over, beyond, and timo, timi is the value or the price. So hypertimo, I overvalue something. I am willing to pay too high a price for it, or to give too much value to it. Meta, change, transition. A few more examples. Metaphrase is to translate. Phrase, phrase in English is the same word, is the sentence, the way of expressing something, and metaphraso is to change, to transition the phrasing into another language, means to translate. Metakino. Kino is to move something. Metakino means to move it somewhere else. And this is literally the meaning of metakino. I'm moving something somewhere else. A metamorphosis, metamorphono, means to transform. So morphi is the form, the shape, and metamorphono is to change the shape. So when Harry Potter changes you into a toad with a magic spell, then this is a metamorphosis. This is metamorphono. And of course, you can use it in nature also. Insects, for example, often undergo a metamorphosis when, and you would say this even in English, right? The word metamorphosis, when the stages of the insect, originally it's like a little worm and then it becomes a butterfly. This is a kind of metamorphosis. Finally, para means beside, outside, or variation. For example, paradigma. Digma is the showing. Digno means to show something, and paradigma is the beside showing. So it's the example. You show something as an example. Parano or paranoisi. No comes from nous, which is the mind, and paranoisi means to be out of one's mind or beside one's mind, to say something crazy, to say something that doesn't make much sense, right? Or to misunderstand, you can say also, to misunderstand. So it has something to do with outside of the normal limits of cognition. And parameno means to remain, because meno means to stay somewhere, and parameno, it means then to stay beside. So when you are sitting beside, let's say, a hospital bed, because you are a relative of a patient and you sit with them to keep them company, then you're staying beside them. Then you say parameno. But parameno does not have this sense of beside always. It can just mean to stay somewhere, so you can be alone and still stay somewhere. Parameno. Sto spiti. Okay, and then we have C1, C2, the more advanced, more academic prefixes. Pro means before and prior. You know this from English also. Programmatizo, which is to program something in the sense of computing. Gramma is the letter or the writing, and programma is the writing in advance, because this is what happens with computer programs. Traditionally, you write them in advance, you try to anticipate what your machine will do, and then you put this program into the computer and let it execute it. So you're pre-writing, literally, right? This is what a program is, a pre-writing exercise. But it can also mean to plan more generally. So in English, you wouldn't say to program one's vacation, but in Greek, you can say this: I am planning my vacation. I am programmatizo, I'm programming to do something. I want to go to visit the Acropolis or something, and then this is also a kind of programmatizo. Proidopio means to warn, to give notice of something in advance. Provlepo, to foresee or to predict. This is very clear, right? Because you have lepo, to see. Provlepo, I can see, I can predict something. Amphi is also one of these more advanced prefixes, means dual direction, ambiguity. It's actually the same word as ambi in Latin, amphi in Greek. Two sides, something has two sides, and I'm seeing both sides. So amphivolos means doubted, doubtable. I have a doubt, I have an amphivolia. And again, volos comes from throwing, right? And amphivolos means I'm throwing to different sides. So I am doubting, I am not sure which one is the right side. Amphisvito means to question something. And amphivalo, again, is to doubt, is the same word as amphivolos. Via means through and apart, going through something or separating something. Via horizo. Horizo means to separate, via means through, separating through. So it means I'm cutting through something entirely. I'm separating through and through these things. Diadido means making something public, to give an information on to more people, to broadcast some information. So diadido means to give to more people, to pass on some kind of information. Diapragmatevome means to negotiate. Pragma is the thing. Pragmatevome means to, the word doesn't exist alone, pragmatevome, but it would mean something like to exchange things, right? To exchange things on a market perhaps. And then diapragmatevome means to negotiate, because you're negotiating the price of things, right? In this way. And so this is the meaning from dia. So you can also have fun with these prefixes, because you can actually invent new words of your own that people will actually understand by adding prefixes to words. And although the words don't exist, it will be silly to use these words in everyday life, because people will know this word does not exist. But if you are among friends, you can make fun of it by creating words that express a feeling perhaps of the moment, or some experience for which there is no word. For example, you could say something like hipertrejo. Hipertrejo. Trejo means to run. Hipertrejo, to run excessively. So you could say, today I went jogging and hipertrexa, I ran too much. This word does not exist, so it is a kind of a silly exercise to do, but it can be very expressive. And if you're a writer or a poet, then you could use this to good effect. You could create new words that your audience will understand. And this would be nice, right? To create new language in this way. Perhaps do this as an exercise now. Try to use these prefixes to create 3 new words that don't exist. Create words by taking any verb, stick the right prefix on it, and then see if you can understand what you are saying, or try it on some of your friends who speak Greek. Okay, that's it for the prefixes. If you want to see this whole thing written, go to my Substack, holidaygreek.substack.com. There you will find all the written materials, all the text of everything I said just now, and more exercises. And I will see you again in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.